Hi, this is Greg.
Hey, Greg, it's Jaime and Amy.
Hi.
Hi, Jaime and Amy. That rhymes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy.
And I'm Jaime, and this is Clever. Today we're talking to skater, designer, entrepreneur Greg Benson of Loll Designs. Over there at Loll, they live by the words of the wise Bob Dylan. If something's not right, it's wrong.
Which got us thinking about the sayings that are important to our lives and work. And I love that saying, that Bob Dylan saying, because it speaks to such a level of quality, right? It's like there's a real line in the sand between whether it's good enough to go out into the world or whether it isn't. What kind of things do you live by, Jaime?
Well, I actually have two. So the first one is nothing worth doing is ever easy, which I think is so true because everything like parenthood, exercise, eating healthy, working really hard, building a business, all of those things are difficult, but the payoff is great. It's greater in the end. So it's worthwhile.
I mean, obviously it's worthwhile, but I'm interested in the nature between how hard it is and what the payoff is, because I think the payoff is usually in the confidence that you've built, having pushed yourself past your limits. When something's hard, exercising, eating healthy, you may lose weight, you may feel more toned, but I think under all of that is this confidence that you are the one in control of the outcome there.
Also, there's a bit of pride there too, just proud of yourself for working so hard and having such a good work ethic.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about people who run marathons and stuff, a lot of them don't care if they come in first or second or have an amazing time. They're just happy to do it. And they're proud of themselves in the end.
Are you proud of yourself?
I am proud of myself. I have not run a marathon, though.
All right.
And I don't have any plans to do
Jaime,
so.
Nothing worth doing is ever easy. Run a marathon. That's not my slogan, so I don't have to run a marathon.
Yeah, no thanks. Me neither. What about you, Amy?
Well, I thought you had two.
Oh, I do. I have another one. Okay. This one is more of an artistic, creative one. So Chuck Close said, inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us just show up and get to work. I love that, especially when it comes to making things, because sometimes, you sit around waiting for a spark of inspiration or creativity to come to you in like a flash or a dream or whatever. And that's not always how it works. Sometimes you just have to sit down and draw for hours and hours and hours. And maybe you throw out 90% of those drawings, but maybe there's 10% that you can utilize. And so, it's just the idea of just buckling down and doing what you do best. And even if it's not all genius or all like a masterpiece in the end, you'll eventually stumble upon something that's usable.
Well, I think the inspiration also comes when you're engaged in the activity, right? If you're sitting around waiting for it to happen before you get to work, then there is no start point necessarily. That inspiration may or may not come. But if you start working first, almost guaranteed that inspiration will come during the process of being engaged. And bonus, you got some shit done, right?
Right.
Well, there's a few things that I live by. The one that comes to top of mind is the very, very cliche, but very true, measure twice, cut once.
Or if you're me, it's measure 3 or 4 times and then cut once.
Well, hey, that's still in the spirit of the saying, right? It's basically like, think it through carefully before you fuck it up.
Right.
And I used to get in so much trouble for doing that because people would get impatient because it would seem as though I was taking a long time to get started. But in my defense, I was thinking through so many of the transitions and the issues that could arise, especially in building a piece of furniture or creating an artwork, how I wanted it to come together and what was going to happen in this event or that event. And by thinking it through so carefully, then when it came time to execute, I was already really firm on how to make decisions. Nothing ever goes according to plan. But because I had thought it through so carefully, I already knew how to answer everything that came up. Right? Because I was so firm and I don't mean inflexible. I just mean I was so dialed in where I wanted this to go that all the decision making that came up on the fly was very easy, which meant the execution went a lot faster because I had done all that pre-thinking.
Yeah.
And pre-measuring, because there ain't no board stretcher. Old man woodworking humor for you.
All right, so back to Greg Benson. Greg is the founder and CEO of Loll Designs, which makes outdoor furniture for the modern lollygagger. But this furniture company has an unusual origin story. Before he got into the furniture business, Greg and his partners founded TrueRide, a company that built custom skate parks all over the world. That sounds like a pretty cool job.
Totally. And he's going to tell us all about it. So from a diehard commitment to ecology and a desire to repurpose the excess material generated from manufacturing those skate parks, Loll and its sister company, Epicurean Cutting Boards, were born. Ever the entrepreneurs, they've also founded a distribution company in Textural that distributes eco-friendly architectural sheet goods. Loll is probably one of the most well-known consumer outdoor furniture brands in the modern arena. Their products are modern, fun, innovative, and versatile, from an Adirondack chair that's made with recycled plastic to more streamlined designs, including a recent collaboration that launched last year with super talented designers Brad Ascalon and Guylaine Vignas.
Greg himself is a family man, an outdoorsman, an ecologist, philanthropist, and all-around nice guy. In fact, he's the kind of guy you'd want to have a beer and sit around lollygagging with. So here you go, our talk with Greg Benson.
Where we live, we call it the Zenith City. So I'm at the Zenith, I think, up
That's
here.
pretty cool. Yeah, I like the word zenith.
You know, we really see in Duluth, and I'll probably talk about Duluth too much, but we really feel that we're in the north. And when people say, "Oh, you're in the Midwest," and I'm just like, I've never related to that my whole life. You know, because to me, like, I don't know, when you think of the Midwest, what do you think of?
Well, I'm from Michigan, so I think of Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, we're just kind of up around the corner. You know, we're just up further, and we're right in the middle of the United States, and we just kind of feel like we're up north. But I don't know. Anyway, so the Zenith City kind of comes from that a little bit too, and we are the furthest point north in the USA.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, there's this little top hat, we call it, on the top of Minnesota, and it's this little corner that's the highest point, northernmost point.
And Duluth was a choice, right?
Oh, yeah, it's a little different climate. It feels different. Again, you know, the up north. Growing up in Minneapolis, you could get out of Minneapolis, but not too far, and sort of be away and be closer to the woods. Lake Superior is really amazing. It's just a really interesting body of water. You know, I mean, I grew up here, and I wanted to be close to home. Mm-hmm. This was sort of it. And I love Minneapolis, too. That's a great city. But this is just a little more remote than that, little smaller.
And you're an avid outdoorsman, right? So you get to take advantage of Lake Superior and the terrain and biking, running, all of that stuff?
We have 800 feet of elevation from the lake up to the highest points. And so when a lot of people think, oh, you're in Minnesota, it's flat. And there are parts of Minnesota that are flat, but there's parts that are very hilly. I wouldn't say mountainous, but yeah, it kind of looks, you know, like small mountains anyway. And we have exposed bedrock. And so mountain biking, cross-country skiing, you know, there's rock climbing here with the crags that we have, the exposed rock. And it's just a really unique topography. And then a lot of lakes. You can leave Duluth and within, you know, minutes, you're just out. You're out of town and kind of in the woods. And that kind of that access to the really easy access. You don't have to get in a car and drive real far. You know, you can actually leave from your house, like on foot or on a bike. So that's pretty nice.
Sounds a little bit like paradise.
Well, yeah, maybe I'm painting that picture, but you know, from Minneapolis, it's a little tough to get that. And this is a little easier. And Lake Superior it's just a big lake, so you don't really mess around with it. If you're sailing out there or boating, or you have to be cautious and watch the weather.
Yeah, it's big enough to make you feel small.
It's big enough where you could die, basically.
Right.
And you feel small.
I'm just going to bring the conversation back to the beginning because you mentioned that you grew up in Minnesota, but
Yep.
Not in Duluth, right? Where in Minnesota did you grow up?
I grew up in a suburb just south of Minneapolis called Bloomington, which when I grew up, Bloomington was kind of it's that first ring of suburbs around Minneapolis. And there were farm fields, cows, farms with windmills, ponds. It wasn't quite the urban sprawl that we have now. So if you go to Bloomington now, it's a little different. But it was a really great place to grow up with, again, access to those things I just mentioned. As a young boy, we had a lot of great playgrounds, that were close to home. You could catch snakes, frogs, turtles, all that stuff. And, I look back at it and I just think, it wasn't city, it wasn't urban, but it's really changed. There aren't cows and windmills and things like that anymore there.
Why did your parents land in Bloomington? Did they commute to Minneapolis, or what did they do for work?
Yeah, it just wasn't that far. Originally, my dad was a teacher in kind of another outlying suburb, and my mom was an occupational therapist. They went to high school together. They grew up in a town of 1,000 people.
Wow.
And they ended up both going to school in Minneapolis and then just ended up staying up there, probably because of opportunity. In a town of 1,000 people, there wasn't that much. And then, I think they bought their first house for like $15,000.
Oh, man.
Something like that. And it's just classic, a little rambler neighborhood.
Did you have brothers and sisters? Like, where were you in the pecking order?
I'm the middle.
Okay.
So a younger brother and an older brother. And we were all pretty close. My older brother and I are 11 months apart. He lives in LA, actually. And then my younger brother, about almost 4 years younger.
And you guys started that first business, which was a skate ramp building company, right?
Yeah.
You and your younger brother started that together years ago?
Yep. It was Dave, my brother Dave, and then our friend Tony Chardelli. So three of us, we were all three from Bloomington. So Rollerblade Inc., the founder of Rollerblade, it's the Olsons. They weren't my neighbors, but they were a mile from my house. And they started rollerblade skates in their garage. And this would have been in, I don't know, like 78 or something like that. And so here's these guys with these hockey skates with wheels on them. And as a kid, you were just sort of drawn to that.
Yeah,
and
totally.
And it was really a hockey thing. And, Minnesota's the state of hockey, and everybody skates. I would see these guys skating on these skates with the wheels in line, and it just looked interesting. And there was really no social tie, like it didn't have any sexuality or social ties to it. It was just a skate, which I think things changed with that. But myself and a lot of other people I know ended up getting involved with Rollerblade, the company. And I actually worked for them in Southern California for 2 years.
Doing?
The Southern California sales rep was one of my closest friends and still is. His name's Chris Morris. And he was the rep down there, and he did a lot of events. So he wasn't just a rep. He was a super rep, I guess you'd say, because he put on events. This was when I was about 26 probably, but I drove a truck to San Francisco for my dad's business. Like I was delivering trucks around the country. They build these utility trucks, the power lines, and the guy gets in with the boom truck where you go up and work on the...
Yeah. He went from being a teacher to being a utility truck guy?
Well, yeah, my dad decided he couldn't make any money being a teacher, so he went and worked for a company that built these utility trucks. And then they would need these trucks delivered, and usually to government or power, utilities, the companies that would own these trucks. And so that was a really great job. I was in college or not in college, and I would drive a truck somewhere like York, Pennsylvania, or, somewhere in Iowa or Florida.
It was just road tripping all the time.
Yeah, sounds like an ideal job.
I've really driven all over the country. But so I drove this truck to, it was an Air Force military truck, and I drove it to California, to San Francisco, and delivered it. And then my friend was in Southern California, so I flew down there, and Rollerblade was blowing up. So this was in 1989, and it was just completely going crazy. And he had this stack of pink slips on his desk because he couldn't ship product. Like all these retailers were carrying the skates, and they were sold out of them, and they couldn't get them. This was kind of early spring, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm just like, "Well, I'm done with school for the year, for the summer." He's like, "Why don't you stay here and work with me?" And I'm like, "All right." So my first job was he handed me the stack of pink slips and said, "Here, start calling people and tell them 6 to 8 weeks." To get the skate.
So he gave you the dirty work to do, basically.
Yeah, and I was just like, all right, I'll do that. It was a great opportunity, and I hadn't spent that much time in Southern California, and And we would drive all over, go to retailers and we'd train the staff on, how to skate and also just about the skates, bearings and wheels and whatnot. And part of that was we'd do these events where we'd set up a half pipe.
Mm-hmm.
We'd build small ramps, we'd set up a half pipe. And that was kind of fun. So I was skating ramps and doing that, but that wasn't like my main thing. We were also going backpacking in the Sierra Nevadas and sailing and whatnot. So it wasn't like we were skaters, even though we worked for rollerblades, but it was just kind of part of our whole recreational thing. We skied, we've always skied. Minnesota's a great place for that with the snow. And when we go do these events, there would always be a horde of kids showing up, and they'd all say, "We need skate ramps." And we kept hearing this over and over and over. And in the meantime, we had brought my brother in. Mm-hmm. And so the three of us kind of said, everywhere we go and we set up a ramp, 100 kids show up and they all say they need ramps. We were kind of tired of driving all over the country, and we said, why don't we go back to Minneapolis and start a company building skate ramps for cities? That's how it started. And so we did. We had no jobs, no money, and we just started building this company one job at a time. And, originally we got a job with a local city, and we built them a skate park. And then we got, 2 cities, and we built 2 parks. And it just kept growing until we had, at the end there, 50 employees, and we had built 450 skate parks, all over the country. We were doing U.S. military bases, so we did one in Italy. We did one in Japan. Yeah, the Japan job was awesome. We basically lived in Yokota, Japan for 2 weeks, building a skate park. We'd build everything modular, and then we'd ship it all in parts, and then it was really putting it together, but you're still doing carpentry on site. Then, of course, we didn't want to travel anymore, but the travel kept going.
That's how Epicurean got started, yeah?
That's how Epicurean started. So we looked around. We're like, you can't buy this material as a cutting board in a retail store. And by this time with TrueRide, we had figured out some branding. We knew how to brand ourselves. So we developed this line of cutting boards. We called the company Epicurean, and we just literally went to like the kitchen store in Duluth. Because we started that company in Minneapolis, but we loved Duluth so much that we said, and we needed space. Like we always have needed space. So we said, let's move up to Duluth instead of moving further out of Minneapolis to get, shop space. Mm-hmm. So we brought these cutting boards, like right before the holidays, we brought them to this kitchenware store in Duluth, and they just sold them immediately. And they're calling us, hey, I need more of those. So then we went, we kept opening stores. We went to Minneapolis to the store called the Kitchen Window, which is really a well-known specialty kitchen store in Minneapolis. And then there was Cooks of Crocus Hill was another one down there. And they were selling like crazy. And then one of the bigger breaks, my sister-in-law worked at Crate and Barrel, and I sent her some boards. She got them to their cutting board buyer.
Nice.
And they ended up taking them. So it just kind of kept snowballing like that. So the cutting boards really took off, and my brother and Tony, it was really like a labor of love for them. They loved to cook. They liked the whole thing. They got in the industry, the housewares industry, and they're still doing it, to this day. And what happened is they took off with Epicurean after like that first year. We all 3 were working on it, but then they really ran with it. They initiated the cutting boards. I didn't come up with that whole concept. But what I was working on was an Adirondack chair, and that's where Loll came out of. So we just kind of naturally started making things we were interested in, I guess.
Where did the design part come?
I don't know. As a kid, I really liked to draw, mm-hmm. and I think that was it. And I wouldn't say I'm just this amazing drawer, but I can translate, and if someone looks at something, I can draw a cube in 3D, and I just like to draw. So I think that was part of it. But additionally, building skate parks for 10 years, and we made them all from scratch right away. We'd draw the ramp shapes, and then we'd cut it out with a jigsaw, and we'd kind of clean up the template, and then we could hand router the rest of the ramps out of that, so you get the same ramp shape. Mm-hmm. And we really did it all on paper, and that turned into 3D modeling. and I don't do the 3D modeling. I don't do it on the computer, but I can draw it, and then someone else can draw it on the computer. And so doing the skate ramps for 10 years, and if you look at what TrueRide was doing, especially towards the end, that they're really sculptural ramp. You know, I think anyone would appreciate it. They'd look at it and go, oh, that's a really cool forms and shapes. And like, so I obviously had some aptitude towards design, but then applying it for 10 years, it was easy then to just move on to the next thing. And I really understood the materials we were using. Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, that's a huge part of design. You know, Adirondack chairs weren't really made out of a 4x8 sheet. They were made out of dimensional lumber. Yeah. And so inherently it was just a different looking chair because we made it out of a sheet.
So you were just doing all of that other stuff during the day and then working on the chair at night or weekends or something like that?
No, it was all during the day.
Did your success building skate ramps and then also your initial success with the cutting boards in the housewares industry, did that give you enough gumption to figure you could make a break into the furniture industry too?
Well, yeah. You know what, our joke is we say the outdoor furniture industry or just the furniture industry, they left the back door open and we walked in and we're standing in the kitchen. Seriously, because we didn't know. I don't think Epicurean knew what they were doing as far as the industry goes. Mm-hmm. And Loll, we didn't know what we were doing with the industry. But we came in with that naivete, and we had a product that was unique. So, mm-hmm. You know, cutting boards, you couldn't buy that. You couldn't buy a rich like cutting board, you know, a material, this thin paper phenolic board. Like it wasn't available. And so we came in with this new material. It was interesting. It was thin. You could put it in the dishwasher. It worked. And we had a unique shape, you know, instead of just a rectangle, mm-hmm. We added radiuses on the top and bottom, and that was unique. And then with the chair, like we really started with this Adirondack chair, and we refined it until it got to the chair that DWR sells, our 3-slat, we call it, because it has 3 slats in the back. Mm-hmm. But that DWR, Design Within Reach, Adirondack chairs, that was the chair. I wanted to say our iconic chair, but I think we have others now that are, to me, just as iconic. But that became like the Loll chair. And I think the acknowledgement of that was when DWR took that chair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that must have been pretty exciting.
It was really exciting. And we had all these other chairs that I thought were more unique because they were. You know, they weren't an Adirondack chair. But I think people were so drawn to that. And that's what, you know, I think both Epicurean and Loll were pulled into these markets because we had a product that people liked. We didn't set out necessarily right away. We were just messing around. You know, we branded these and we went for it. You know, we went to the trade shows. We showed the products. And that's how we met DWR, was at a trade show in San Francisco, the first Dwell on Design show.
That's how you met DWRs at the first Dwell on Design show?
Yeah, the first, they were showing the Airstream that Chris Deem did for Airstream, and they sold, and they put our chairs, black 3-slat Adirondacks, around that Airstream, and we met a guy named Ben Gaffney who ended up at DWR. He was already there, but he ended up becoming their outdoor furniture buyer, and we had beers with him in the Airstream. And nice. a couple years later, he called us up. He's like, "Hey guys, send me a couple chairs," you know. And I didn't think he'd want the Adirondack chair, but that was the black 3-slat was kind of this chair that was really a great chair.
I'm guessing a part of your success too has also been that you guys have done a lot of this manufacturing in-house, right? So when orders started,
all of it.
Yeah. So when orders start coming in for a design that you guys have produced, you don't have to worry. I mean, you still have vendors and things that you need to deal with, but you've got your manufacturing kind of all dialed in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're at such a higher level now than we've ever been. But it's different now. But we've always been fortunate on the Loll side. We make to order. We don't inventory. So, you know, we like to make stuff. So we have, 200 plus different products that we've designed and we have available, but we don't have them sitting on shelves. You know, when someone buys it, we make it.
Yeah, that sounds really smart.
Well, it's smart until you get really busy, and then your lead time becomes 8 weeks, and then people stop buying it because they don't want to wait 8 weeks.
Oh, yeah, I guess that would be a drawback.
So that's kind of the challenge with that. But we've changed things up a little bit recently. We're starting to inventory our best sellers, and that hopefully will help with that.
That makes sense. What I was kind of getting at is that all three of them have a similar ethos, right? I mean, you guys and you specifically have a really strong commitment to being eco-friendly and to the environment. I read that you guys capture the heat from your manufacturing processes to heat your plant in the winter. You give like 1% of your gross sales back to environmental organizations, and you're a good boss. Like you've worked really hard to set plans in place to keep your employees happy and well taken care of. Where does this all come from?
Yeah, it's probably Minnesota nice a little bit. Yeah. But not everybody here is like that. But I mean, certainly on the environmental side, it goes back to a teacher I had in high school, Tom Hayden. And he had an environmental studies class. And, we'd do things like go out and get acorns, and then we'd soak them in a creek. And then we'd go back to the class and grind them into flour and make pancakes.
Oh, man, that sounds so fun.
I know. He did crazy stuff where we'd go morel mushroom hunting, or we'd go learn about trees. But we also, that was when the ecology movement started. So we were learning about ecology and learning about saving gas. Like he would do these events where you get 1 gallon of gas and you had a bunch of people with cars. Everyone got a gallon, and then they'd see who could go the furthest on the gallon. And, and it's just like, I haven't heard of a race like that since, but he was very important to me in instilling this sense, of the environment and our impact on it. And that never left, so that was like 11th grade and 12th grade. I was just obsessed with his classes. And then when I went on to school, I really was drawn towards any kind of environmental study, and learning more. And I really didn't know. I went to 3 different schools in Minnesota, and I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And I finally figured out, I was doing literature, and then I was studying geography, and I wanted to write, so I wanted to write about the environment and more of like a fiction, like Edward Abbey. Stories. And I didn't end up doing that. Of course, my English is not that good. My grammar is really not that good. So I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. But, but it's still certainly that whole desire that I had, my perspective on the environment has transferred into our products and then the company. We have always had a saying, if it's not right, it's wrong.
I like that.
We got it from Bob Dylan.
Okay.
I got to give Bob credit for that one. And so we really use that the whole time. It started with looking at a ramp. If we built a ramp and we had this 1/8-inch tolerance, but if something wasn't right, we'd say, well, if it's not right, it's wrong. And you'd have to fix it.
Yeah.
And, rebuild the ramp or make it right. Almost 20 years later, this is our 19th year, and people here know it. It was real. It wasn't this phony motto. It was like, if it's not right, it's wrong. And it's a guideline, on everything that we're trying to do here.
So part of the quality product, though, I want to acknowledge is the aesthetics. Like, your products are beautiful. And a lot of that is straight from your mind, right? I mean, you're an in-house designer. I know you collaborate and you work with other designers as well. It's
a team. And we have this fictitious designer. His name's Julian Frost.
Uh-huh.
Julian Frost is the master designer, and now the cat's out of the bag. I just let it go. But really, it's very collaborative, and we make something. Even if I start with the sketch, I'm not gonna take credit with that, because like this bike rack we're making was something I sketched, but it's so different at the end, than what I sketched, because we make one and then we refine it. The benefit of us manufacturing ourselves right here is we can prototype all day. And if we were making it somewhere else, if we were just designers having these products made in China, the prototyping process would be so slow. And if you're looking at pictures of it, or on the computer, it's not the same. So we can take something and really, we can make a lot of progress on a design in a day. And we still do the same thing. Like our Adirondack chair isn't the same one, that we made 10 years ago. We keep evolving that chair, like it used to be, you saw all the fasteners, we screwed right through the surface, just like any other chair you saw. And I still remember I was in San Francisco at a trade show. Everything we made was black because all the skate ramps, our ramps were always black.
Mm-hmm.
And for good reasons too. It was just durable and it looked good. We wanted an edgy product, but so all the waste was black. So everything we made was black. And there was all these stainless steel screws in all the chairs. It was in San Francisco at this Green Fest or something. And I remember standing there and I sort of had this trippy moment. And they looked like a bunch of fish eyes looking at me, all these fasteners, and they were random, And I'm like, we got to get rid of these fish eyes. Like, we got to get rid of these screws. Like, so then it became, obsessed with hiding fastening and hiding fasteners, which is really common in indoor furniture. You don't want to see a bunch of screws.
Yeah.
Well, the system we have that we've developed, it's a little block, and it works with a brass insert, and there's a pocket in this little block and a bolt, and they all just sort of fit together, and it's all underneath the chair. And that's a system that we just kept working on, and now it's in everything. And the really, some of the great benefits with that is it allowed us to flat pack.
Mm-hmm.
And it also allows if the dog chews their arm off, we can send them just an arm, and they can put the new arm on.
Mm.
So it really, that was that one fastening system. I mean, everything needs a fastening system, but that one thing that just changed the whole product line. Cleaned it up aesthetically, but it also, like I said, allowed for flat pack and replacement parts and customer assembly. And, because you can't, just like IKEA, you can't ship all this stuff big and assembled. You'd be shipping air.
Yeah.
Which is expensive.
Expensive, right. And it doesn't fit with your carbon footprint plan.
No, it doesn't.
I'm interested in the name Loll and how you came up with that, because you call yourselves modern lollygaggers, and I would just love to know what the heck you mean by that.
Yeah. So I have to give a nod to our graphic designer, Jesse Michaels, who really, when you look at our graphic design, that's Jesse. And Brian King is on the Loll side, and Jesse's on the Epicurean side. Jesse, it's kind of funny. When he was 17, he was our very first employee. And now he's got a wife and 3 boys. And he's 37. Yeah, and he's still with us. And he went to college for graphic design, but he just, in the summers, he'd go do skate ramps. But anyway, Jesse, when we started Loll, he thought of the word relax. And he looked up a synonym for relax, and he saw Loll. And of course, that being a graphic designer, he just liked how it looked.
Sure.
And so he's the one who came up with Loll. Jesse's style is very clean, and I have to give him a lot of credit for the look in a lot of our things. Again, that's that collaborative thing, where we got a great team, and we keep refining things until it feels right.
So would you say the modern lollygagger is like somebody who appreciates good quality design, is concerned about the planet, but likes to sit around outside and drink some beers every once in a while?
That's exactly it. We say that we say you're loosely tight.
Nice.
You're serious about work, and you're serious about your play, but you're really serious about your lollygagging. And you're just that you're gonna sit on your deck and you're enjoy that beer, but you kind of earned it. That's us too. That's how we are. It's certainly not like a couch potato.
Yeah,
that's not
right.
what we think of a lollygagger. It's someone who's active and appreciates that rest time.
Yeah, has earned it and relishes it and makes the most of it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's appreciating design and quality too. That's starting to become maybe more a customer on a whole, not a modern lollygagger. But it's a funny term, like loosely tight, because modern and lollygagger, to me, lollygagger is such an old use word. And I guess modern's been around a long time, but modern's always moving forward. And to me, lollygagger sounds like the past a little bit. But it works well. People gravitated to that. When we'd say that, you kind of get a little chuckle, like they hadn't really heard that before, those 2 words together.
Yeah, and it paints a picture of a lifestyle, right? And it's something I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to go out and do modern lollygagging. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, it is. I'm sure you've done it.
I recently saw you holding a can of lollygagger ale. I figured you have something to do with that.
Yeah, we do.
Are you in the beer business, or was that a charitable project?
We are slowly working towards the beer business.
Nice.
But not as brewing. So there's a local 2-year-old brewery in Duluth. They're called Bent Paddle Brewery, and they were founded by 2 couples, and they really know what they're doing. They're brewers. They had roots here in Duluth. They were out in the world, and they came back here to start a brewery. You know, they love Duluth, but one of the main reasons is because of the Lake Superior water is so great for brewing beer.
Awesome.
And so they came back here, and we met them as they're setting up their brewery, and they needed tap handles. So we started designing a tap handle with them, and so we're their tap handle provider. But there's also a 20-year-old brewery in Duluth called the Brew House, which, especially in Minnesota, it's a landmark, really well-known brewery. You know, 20 years ago to start a craft brew pub in Minnesota was pretty unique.
Yeah, it's pretty visionary.
It is, and that was some guys who are good friends of mine. And we originally, for them, we made these beer flights, you know, when you want to sample the beers. And then originally they were using the round kegs that have kind of a ring around them. And we made these keg stackers out of the plastic. So you put a keg stacker on the floor, and then you can set 4 kegs on it on their side. Oh. And then you put another keg stacker on top of that, and you can stack kegs up, you know, to the ceiling.
Yeah.
So you're getting into the beer accessories and beer storage business.
Yep. So but we're not, you know, you go to our website and we're not selling anything. It's really directly with the breweries or the brew pubs. And so we've done really just in Minnesota, but we've done a lot of work, you know, with beer flights, and we're working on a 3rd brewery on a 3rd tap handle. So we're the supplier for 2 right now. There's a new brewery restaurant in Minneapolis called Surly, and it's an amazing brewery. They call it the destination brewery, but you go there and you're just kind of like, wow, you know. And this is craft beer on I don't know what I want to say I didn't want to say on drugs, but on like steroids. That's better, which are still drugs. So
I think we get what you mean.
Yeah, but one of the fun things that we're doing now is we're doing outdoor patios. So we're like at Surly, we did all the outdoor furniture in their patio. And to think, if you Googled the Surly Brewery, you'd see what I mean. It's over the top. And so to work on that project and do their outdoor furniture, and it's all unique. Like we custom designed this stuff for them. And we've done another in Duluth, and then we're working with another brewery in Minneapolis right now on their outdoor patio, and just kind of doing a custom outdoor space.
That must be fun.
It's super fun, you know. Yeah. And it's like, so we like beer, we like craft beer, we especially like IPA. And I'm saying I'm kind of throwing everyone on the bus, but you know, not everyone has the same taste. But there's a lot of IPA drinkers around here, and yeah, to work with them and really, you know, try to make a great outdoor space. It's fun, and you know, our product works well for that.
Yeah,
for spilling beer on it.
Yeah, right. Just wipe it off.
Yep.
Hose it down.
So I love hearing about all these interrelationships in the area. Like you're part of the creative, you know, landscape of Duluth and Minneapolis. Yeah. It's a hotbed of creative action in Minnesota now, and you guys are a big part of it, but it's a whole community. What's going on there?
Yeah, you know, I don't know. I think some people you'd say, well, we're locked up inside all winter, you know, we're just thinking of stuff. And there's probably some of that. But there's kind of this maker craft movement that's going on, and it's been going on for a long time in, of course, other places. But it's certainly happening here, and it's the people that are kind of in it. You know, we are sort of, our eyes meet from across the room or something, you know, but we just are drawn to each other. And we
sounds so romantic.
Yeah, it is. Like the Faribault Woolen Mill is a great example. It's this 100-plus-year-old woolen mill. They make wool blankets. And we met them, and now we have a wool poncho. You know, my addition to their wool blanket was, well, we got to cut a slit in the middle so it's a poncho.
Yeah.
I like Clint Eastwood movies. And so they hadn't done that before, you know, so that was kind of fun. And So we have a Loll Faribault, co-branded poncho blanket. And
that's a perfect accompaniment for when it gets a little chillier, but you still want to lollygag.
Well, yeah.
Like a hardcore gangster.
That wasn't lost on us. But there's definitely very collaborative and cooperative group, of people making things. And we're all trying to do, craft and quality. Even some really great restaurants where they're so serious, they're buying local produce, they're growing it, on their roof. They've got tilapia tanks. This is one in particular in Duluth. He's got trying to really get this closed loop thing going and just really serious about a quality product and a unique experience. And that's called the Duluth Grill. Just kind of fun. You go to places like that, whether it's products or food or beer, and you recognize that uniqueness to it, and it's special. And people care about it. It's not just a commodity and just units. Even still, you have to make money to do that and progress and do more.
Right.
So certainly you got to profit, but it's kind of how do you get there? How do you get that dollar in your pocket?
So what are you looking forward to? What's coming down the pike for Loll Designs or for Greg Benson specifically?
Well, really short term, I'm going to Whistler with my family, skiing and snowboarding on Saturday.
Oh, nice.
We have such a long list of products that we want to make, and there's things I'm really genuinely excited about making and seeing it. We have a couple more sofa collections that we know what they are. They're sketches. We know what they are. We just got to make them. And a lot of other products too, like our whole Rapson collection. We have more pieces that we're working on for that. And that's just exciting to me.
Oh, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think just growing this company it has been really fun. And right now we did, back in TrueRide days, we had a steel shop and we fabricated steel, and we haven't been doing that with Loll, and we really want to start fabricating steel. So we're getting closer to that. We're talking about it and making our own. And that's just exciting for me to have a steel fab shop again.
Yeah.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah.
How do you want people to find you? What's your website? And do you guys have active social media presences?
So, we have a Twitter and Instagram and Facebook page. And, of course, our Loll Designs is our website. That's the best way to find us, Loll directly.
Okay.
Great.
But, our two big retailers, Room and Board and Design Within Reach, are good places to see our product. And we have a lot of really great independent retail shops around the country.
And you can find those on your website?
Yep, there's a list there. One really exciting thing we've been working on is working internationally. So we've had a distributor in Australia for a while, but just this past summer we went to Mexico and literally interviewed 8 different potential distributors and picked one, Mui in Guadalajara. And then we were just in Amsterdam, and we found someone there.
Oh, that's exciting.
Called Dax.
Oh,
it's really exciting. And
yeah.
I know. In the UK, Surface Matter is our distributor there. So that's really fun, to, really get out and work with people that talk differently than I do.
Yeah.
But it's just fun. It's we're doing well in the United States and Canada, but we weren't doing a lot in Mexico. And it's fun for work, be able to go work with someone else and build a relationship, in other countries. And that's something I'm looking forward to more. I really want to go to Scandinavia. That's kind of my roots and heritage, and I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing so much of yourself and of your trajectory and your story with us. This has been really great.
Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I appreciate your interest in Loll, and me too. I'm a little flattered by that.
Oh, shucks. Glad you're flattered.
But thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So it's been fun.
Yeah,
Wow.
we're glad to have you.
Take it easy.
That Greg is such a nice guy, right? Midwestern nice is what he called it.
Yes. And he is definitely the guy I would love to sit around lollygagging with, having a beer, just chilling,
Yeah, Totally. He knows how to do it right, I bet.
Yeah, no, I've seen them in their booth at trade shows. They sit around, they chill out. It's very relaxed. It's fun. You go up, you have a seat. You feel like you're in somebody's backyard. It's great.
You know what I love about their booths at trade shows is they almost seem to be demonstrating the art of lollygagging, right? They always have refreshments.
They do.
They're consummate hosts.
There's ample seating.
And they show you how to just not sweat it and lollygag right. I think it's super cool that without, technically any formal business training, he seemed at first like just a kid, working for Rollerblade and then building skate ramps. But every step of the way, he's kind of building his business acumen and making really shrewd decisions. And, his commitment to ecology has been unwavering through it all. And his decision to stay in Minnesota, I think, is also really important. You talked about that too, right?
Well, we talked to a lot of designers. A lot of them grew up in a small town somewhere and then they ended up migrating to a big city. And he didn't do that. He just grew kind of organically with the businesses that he was building in his hometown area. He seems like that's a place where he's set down his roots and he has a solid foundation and he's really supportive of the area. He's, contributing to the communities around him. So he has like this really strong connection, and I think it's incredibly admirable.
I think so too. And I think that it's really important, this idea that you don't have to grow up and then go to where the design is. You make the design wherever you are. And he's chosen Duluth as an ideal place for him, for his lifestyle, for his family, for everybody involved in the businesses. And he's building what seems to me like the friendliest empire possible.
I know,
right?
With 3 companies, those guys have their hands full, but it seems like they're really enjoying it.
Yeah.
And everybody around them is benefiting from it too, so that's great.
Exactly. Here's to life, Greg Benson.
Cheers.
Thanks for doing what you do. Yeah. I'm raising a beer to you right now.
Well, that does it for this episode of Clever. Go subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and sign up for our email newsletter at cleverpodcast.com.
Yeah, you can find us on the web at cleverpodcast.com. That's where our show notes are. You can see images of Greg lollygagging and of Loll Designs. And you can also join us on social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Clever Podcast. This episode of Clever was edited by Chris Modal of Your Studio with music by L1011. Thanks for listening.